Hey everybody, welcome to So Many Sequels, your book club for movies. I'm Josh.
I'm Garrett.
And I'm David.
Today on the show, we are diving into the epic world of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. But before we jump in, be sure to subscribe to us here on YouTube or in your favorite podcasting app, whichever one you are enjoying the show on. That really helps us grow and reach a new audience, and everybody's happy. Right now, we're shooting for 316 YouTube subscribers, and with your help, we can get there. So go do that. And now we will get started with Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. This movie is about two warriors in pursuit of a stolen sword and a notorious fugitive. They're led to an impetuous, physically skilled teenage nobleman's daughter who is at a crossroads in her life. David, what was the box office reaction to Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon when it came out in 2000?
It was, a little slow to get started, but I think as the word of mouth picked up, this movie did better and better. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon opened December 8th of the year 2000. Year 2000? I can't really do it right now because of my voice. It opened in the number 15 spot with $663,000. Number one movie that weekend, we actually reviewed it not long ago, was How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Its best weekend came a few months later in February 16th. This was President's Day weekend. It jumped all the way up to number 5, bringing in $10.4 million. Also in the theater that weekend was Hannibal, Down to Earth, which is a fun movie with Chris Rock and Mark Addy. And then at number 3, you had Recess, School's Out. And at number 4, Sweet November. So fun weekend at the box office that weekend. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, according to Box Office Mojo and the numbers, went on to make $128 million in the United States, boosted somewhat by its Academy Awards success. It also brought in around $85 million internationally to bring its worldwide total up to $213.9 million. Some other little details I'll give you here is that $128 million is the equivalent of about $234 million in today's money. The budget was only $17 million in the year 2000, which is roughly the equivalent of about $31 million today. It finished as the number 12 movie of the year 2000, which we've been to a few times. I mentioned How the Grinch Stole Christmas. We were there very recently for Garrett's So Many Sweethearts pick, Return to Me, as well as when we did So Many Fockers. We had Meet the Fockers come out this year. Bedazzled, which we've also reviewed for Brendan Fraser, who came out this year. Mission Impossible 2, and Reindeer Games. So just a great slew of movies for us from the year 2000. Top movies of that year were The Grinch, Castaway, Mission Impossible 2, Gladiator, and What Women Want. I'll also add that with that $120 million...
We're done. I've had like three trains of thought I've wanted to jump in on.
Oh, go ahead. What do you want to say?
Well, first I wanted to ask Garrett if he watched Down to Earth recently. Because think you did.
I did watch Down to Earth recently, and it does hold up quite well. Honestly, I have two early loves that just jump right off the top of my head of like Chris Rock movies. First of all, it is Down to Earth. And then secondly, Head of State. And in this election year, I highly recommend you go watch that just to turn off your brain and ignore some of the real life political stuff and go watch Chris Rock be elected president.
But what does he do in Down to Earth? He dies, right?
Down to Earth, he dies and then comes back as a stand-up comedian, as an old white man, essentially.
He possesses an old white rich man.
Oh, is that?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
And some hilarity ensues in how he presents himself as an old white rich man.
So I should
Mark
watch
Addy. Mark
It's
Addy,
funny.
who
It's very good.
who plays Robert Baratheon in Game of Thrones and was also in A Knight's Tale. Yeah. He's in that movie as well.
Wow. Okay.
Was there something else you wanted? You guys can jump in anytime during.
Well, I
box
know
office
it was
snap
just
time.
going a little quick for me. But I was also
What
going to point out that it only makes sense that 2000 would be so bad because we've talked about how historically epic 1999 was.
Yes,
so of course
99
2000 is going to be trash.
Was amazing. I mean, there was a lot of great movies in the year 2000, but it was also a year of experimentation, I think.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of, and we can get into that another day. But I believe this stat is still accurate. But in the year 2001, when it finished its run, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon became the highest-grossing foreign-produced Chinese-language film in American history.
Wow.
Not sure if there is a non-foreign produced Chinese language movie that did better, but the film was the first foreign language film to make over $100 million in the United States.
That's
So
kinda
that's
crazy.
your last little detail for you
Wow.
with that.
Okay. Well, so it is Action August. That's why we're doing this movie. And David, it is your pick. Last week we did The Goonies, and before that we opened the month with Deadpool and Wolverine. So for our third movie, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, what made you choose this one for us?
I really wanted to do a martial arts film. And so I did a little bit of studying. I watched some Jackie Chan movies, and I really was leaning towards something like that. And then in my memory, somewhere in my memory, I remembered that Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon had made quite a lot of buzz at the Academy Awards. And I thought, let's go with the artist's action movie or something. If that's I don't know if that's right way of putting it, but I remember this had a lot of critical acclaim. And I remember I've seen videos about stunt performers talking about how this movie was really revolutionary in a lot of ways for action and stunts and like sword choreography and things like that. So I was like, let's go with that. Let's go with something that is sort of a little more artistic, but also has those action vibes as well. And I think overall I'm okay with where I landed. I think if I could take it back, I might have gone with one of those weird Jackie Chan movies because those things were just kind of nuts. Like the stunts in those movies were nuts. But anyway, that's why I went ahead and picked this one.
Yeah. All right. So Garrett, what were your kind of first thoughts on it? What did you come into this
I was pretty excited because I had never seen Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and I was not, as Mr. Movie person at the time, and so I did not get a chance to see it. And this was my first time, so I knew that it had it was very well regarded, and that over time it had just become even more, talked about and respected. And so, not knowing much about it, I was expecting a little more action than what it delivered. But what I wasn't expecting was a really well-produced, overarching story that had a lot of thought put into each character and the journeys that they all went on. And so, blending that with the action and the storytelling, this movie didn't necessarily give me as much action impact as I thought I was going to get, but I got a lot better movie than I was looking forward to. So really, I had some excitement going into it, and then a different appreciation on the outside of it.
Yeah,
How about you, Josh?
I had some reservations going into this. I really couldn't even remember if I'd seen it in full. I just knew it was something I'd seen a lot of clips of. But I couldn't remember if I'd seen it actually in its entirety before. And I don't typically find myself drawn to martial arts movies, particularly martial arts fantasy. So I didn't know what to expect really, because it's just kind of a crapshoot for me if I like it or not. And this movie had a lot of moments that I liked, and quite a bit that I wouldn't say I didn't like, but that I just kind of like fully disengaged with the movie on. And I think that's where I was just not. It just wasn't speaking to Josh, and that's fine. So that's kind of how I came into it. David, what did you told us why you picked it. Now, what did you feel about it after watching it first time?
So yeah, I also had never seen it before. I just heard a lot about it. I remember I remember being like 11 or 12 and just hearing the phrase "Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon" a lot. And so I didn't know what to expect. I was aware of it being kind of a classic, and I'd seen clips of it and stuff, like I said. And I was happy to find out that it wasn't just like a pure action movie. It wasn't like a John Wick, 20-minute fights or something like that. There was a love story, and there was a story about self-reflection and rebelling against like the obligations that are put on us in society and things like that. The action when it happens is top notch. Like, it's like the fight choreography is great, and the every fight feels like an escalation of the previous one. It doesn't feel like they don't have like they're not just like all longer and longer. They feel like they are more complex or more poetic or something more. They're, each one is very character driven, the fights. So I liked that. The wire work obviously stands out. Josh, we can talk about that in a little bit, but the wire work is so different than anything you really see today. These characters like literally fly and just are like dancing across rooftops in a way that you don't see really done anymore. So yeah, I actually really enjoyed the story and the action. Not like I'm with you, Josh. I don't know if it fully connected with me across the whole movie. That said, I think I do appreciate what it was trying to do pretty well.
I'm curious what you guys thought of the blending of themes in this movie. I think there's a lot of really strong themes around honor and destiny and love. What, if any of those, stuck out to you when watching this?
I think, it was so interesting, the unspoken love between the two main characters. It was and that's such an interesting cultural thing, because I was just like, girl, I was sitting here watching it and being like, girl, he's never going to leave that sword. That sword just calls to him. And like, you could really tell.
Can't get between a man and his sword. Come on.
No, but he was ready to go and give it up until he had to go, resolve his master's death and then get called on this bigger journey. And so there really is this struggle back and forth, especially between the two main characters, of their duty, because they are so duty bound in what they are doing. He's a high, esteemed warrior and is set out to, avenge his death. And she is bound and determined to find out who stole this sword. And it's his sword. So it is something that is really important to not only her, but both of them. And so seeing them on this quest together, both struggling with that unspoken love that they have, but knowing that they both have this duty and this honor that they both respect, it was something that was really interesting to see, because they did. You don't often see people put, like, both of the main characters put duty before the feelings that they are going through. And so that was an interesting cultural dynamic that I really liked seeing on screen, because they both knew what they felt like they had to do. Mm-hmm. And yes, they were able to put that self-sacrifice down and say, this is, better for the greater good, at least for what they believed in. And so I really liked that.
Yeah, I agree. And the reserve that they both have to sort of hold back their expression for liking each other. Whereas, I think in like an American movie, you look at the relationship between who are clearly sort of your leading man and leading lady in a situation like this, the romantic chemistry is more overt. It's more clear, I think, that they are interested in each other, and there's more of that dancing around each other. And here it's like they're both just desperately fighting not to reveal to the other that they are interested in the other one. Whereas, the thing is, when they meet, first thing, Chow Yun-fat and Michelle Yeoh, when they meet each other for the first time, I just assumed they were married. I was like, oh, here's man and woman. Surely they are married. But, of course you learn that, okay, well, they're friends and they both like each other, but neither of them is willing to admit it or wants to push the other one to feel forced out of their current obligations and duties. The story that stood out really more to me was Jen's story, played by Zhang Ji, and I'd be saying that name wrong, but I thought, I didn't expect the sisterly relationship between her and Michelle Yeoh's character to be sort of the other focal point of this, and how she feels pushed into marrying someone. It's very Game of Thrones right now. Marrying someone for political status. She doesn't want that. She wants a different life for herself. And Michelle Yeoh, who herself is forcing herself to not confess her true feelings, is like, no. She's kind of having to be like, well, the best thing to do probably should do what they want you to do. And she's giving this advice that she herself is grappling with whether or not she can hold to it. So I don't know. I thought that was that stood out to me is this idea of rebelling against obligation.
To me, it's pretty,
That's
in
the
so
hidden
many
master.
in so many American movies specifically, it's no surprise when a man is duty bound, right? They're usually the ones that are hard to win over. Their feelings are more, they're big tough man, don't feel until the end of the movie, and then it's like love. That's, oh wow, I didn't know I needed this. And what I really appreciated about this movie was how Michelle Yeoh's character was presented. She was presented as very strong, and it wasn't a surprise or anything for a woman in this culture to be, not have those feelings be presented first. She was presented as a strong warrior who was well respected herself, and so both of them in their own fields had this duty and this honor that they felt was more important than those feelings that they had. They had to do that. And one of the coolest moments for me, David, you mentioned Jen's performance, was that tea house fight. I mean, when those two women were about to fight, I audibly went, "Oh shit," because I was ready. I was into that, and that whole fight to me was such a climax that the fight scene between Cheyenne Fat and oh gosh, what'd you say her name was? I've gone blank. Zhang.
I think Zhang.
Yeah.
Let's go with that.
Yeah. Apologies for saying wrong. But I thought that bamboo fight was beautiful. Not necessarily as action-packed as you might expect, but the wire work that was involved in that fight scene was such a beautiful contrast to the badassery that you got of those two women fighting in the tea house. And that, again, just a different kind of way of presenting a movie from a cultural standpoint, and it's appreciated. It is something that you don't see in an American movie where both characters are presented with such strength for something else. You don't have to let your feelings go, and you can both be strong, and that is a normal thing. And that's just the way that this came across, and it was just, again, really well thought out, and it showed.
Let's talk a little bit about the fighting and the wire work. First, though, there's a lot of iconic fight scenes in this. Which one stands out to you as your favorite for whatever reason? Mine, I don't know if this is, I don't really know if there's like a popular one or not, but I just really like the one where they're fighting on horseback while riding parallel with each other. That was a fun one to me. What about you guys?
I'm gonna say because I don't know if it is true or not, but I'm gonna say the one where Jen goes to like a restaurant hotel thing, and then just this gang rolls up on her, and she just like beats up this entire gang of guys, and we cut to them later, and they're all bruised and beaten up and messed up. To me, that one was so. Like I said, I watched these Jackie Chan movies, which are very much in the same vibe. I kind of wonder if in the way of a gunslinger walking into a saloon and immediately getting into it with some guy, if that's also a trope of the wuxi genre. I think I'm saying that right. Which is what this type of movie is, where protagonist goes into hotel, restaurant, bar, orders the biggest thing they can on the menu, because this happened in multiple Jackie Chan movies, and then gets into a huge restaurant spanning fight. To me, that one is what, the one with Michelle Yeoh later is probably the more iconic, but that one to me was like so fun and funny and creative, and they found different ways to work her through that fight and different weapons and stuff like that.
Yeah, the other one that I really liked was that first, the rooftop chase scene, where you really get a sense of seeing that gravity defying wire work, and as they're running like vertically, and that mess was crazy. It was just, I don't know. I had to pause it and be like, I just need to make sure that I'm understanding this, or like this is what they go to train for, right? Like, I'm not crazy. And they're like, yeah, this is the martial arts piece. And I was like, okay, because this stuff is cool. So the way that they really just highlighted that right out the gate with some of the gravity defying runs, honestly, that they do when they just, it was just so cool. And
Michelle Yeoh, she's doing some Spider-Man stuff in this.
Yeah. And the way that it was just so seamless is what threw me. So for a second, I was like, hang on. And so I had to take a pause and just make sure that I was grasping it right, because they don't walk like that regularly. Like they run when they know how to do that just because they can, and that's pretty cool. So that scene also stood out for me.
There was no build to it. There was no swell of production being like, this is the first time one of us is gonna lift off into the air.
Right.
It was just like so matter of fact of like the person's here and then they just go. Whoop.
Yeah, it just seems so normal. I was like, is everybody doing this?
Yeah, I had a similar reaction when that started, but then mine kept going. This is where I got to be the bucket of cold water, I guess, because I didn't love the wire work stuff.
Yeah.
I liked some of it. I thought some of it was really good, and then some of it I just thought it looked goofy. The running and the way they would just like fly up into the air like Superman, I didn't love. And I think because it looked to me I'm not saying I could see the wire, but it looked like wire work. Like it looked like I'm watching how they would make Peter Pan fly on stage, which is, I understand that's part of it, but that's the parts that weren't clicking with me. I was like, I just am not getting there.
I know
I'm not finding this cool.
There's almost no effort to hide it. Like they're just like shamelessly on wires.
There's a lot
which
of it,
really
like, running up the walls.
Takes you a minute to like figure out.
Those parts are cool. I like it when it's used more minimally. I think it's the exaggerated ones where it started to suck me out a little bit. That's my ice cold take on the wire work.
I don't think you're necessarily wrong. It is jarring, and because it's not like a thing that we really do anymore.
Right.
Like when we throw around the phrase they don't make movies like this anymore, and like that's true with this. I've not seen a movie in the last, and maybe that's me, and that's me not watching enough foreign movies or something. You don't see movies like this where the characters just kind of like float and like the wire work is this obvious anymore.
Well, and there's moments where I'm thinking that there's a fight up in the trees, and when they're kind of flying between trees, they're like midair, their feet are like treading water, like they're running, and that I didn't like the look. I didn't like it. Made me think of Scooby-Doo.
To me, I think that's where some of the fighting that they did, I appreciated that they worked a lot of it into the storytelling. It wasn't necessarily just like, David, you talked about some of those Jackie Chan movies, and I'd watched a couple earlier. And, a lot of the times those fights are part of situations, right? They're there because he's in a chaotic situation and a fight breaks out. Whereas this martial art movie it's like a sacred training. There's a beauty to it that there's not. It's a defensive fighting mechanism for some movies. And in this one, it's meant to be something esteemed and really well regarded. And so the fight scenes, they escalate, but they're also part of the storytelling. And I think that comes with some of the beauty of it. And so a lot of that wire work, I think, is meant to enhance the mysticism and the elevation of what these people are trying to do and achieve. And I think that's, it was jarring, but and that's why, I've done in my research, people talk about the bamboo treetop scene as one of the things that stands out. But to me, that fight scene itself didn't have as much action or interest in it had it not been for the element of storytelling that it culminated with. The fight scene for me in the tea house was the big fight, and that one was to showcase how well regarded Chow Yun-Fat's character was and the potential that Jen had in that. And so I think they had different purposes, and sometimes that over exaggeration stuff was just because it was supposed to be, here's a thing that you can do with this if you were to train hard enough. So it clicked with me in that regard. I didn't love it as much as some of those just regular fight scenes or more traditional fight scenes that we're used to. But I think I get what they were trying to do and where it works into the story.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, definitely.
Any other thoughts? Any other places or themes or areas you want to explore?
I wanted to see what you guys had to say about it, but one of the things that I was surprised by is this movie had a lot of like Western elements, Western movie genre
literally
elements.
Westerns,
One of the things that struck me was the beauty of the scenery. I mean, we go on a journey with Jin throughout this, and we see some deserts and we see other elements, and truly the scenery is strikingly beautiful. And that is something that happens a lot in Westerns. They're on horses a lot. They're traveling. And so some of those things really stood out to me as things that were familiar. And it was really a nice blend of cultures in those moments as well as some of the fighting scenes. But I was really blown away by some of the visual scenery scenes. Did those stand out to you guys at all?
It did. This movie won Best Cinematography at the Oscars. Peter Pau did the cinematography on the film, and he's most well known for his work on Westerns. So it makes sense that would translate so easily over to this for him. There's a ton of beautiful shots. You're exactly right. And like there's even shots that aren't necessarily like wide angle scenery shots that I love. There's one where they're kind of skip flying across like a, what would you call it? Not a pond, but a fountain of sorts that's like long and stretches the screen. I was like, that's a dang cool shot. So I agree. The movie and the scenery and all that is amazing. It's definitely its own world, it feels like.
I think it goes to show that at least maybe for us and for a lot of people in the United States, that we don't really have a firm grasp of just how environmentally diverse China is. China has so much more to it than kind of what we are used to. The portrayal, we're kind of used to like dense cities or empty, farm fields, and they have incredible mountainous regions. They have these incredible deserts and things like that. So to see kind of a more, like fully realized version of China in this movie, I think goes a long way to showing that beauty. In terms of it being very Western-like too, this, from what I can tell, Wuxia is very much China's version of the Old West, of it's historical fiction, right? It's their cowboys, it's their knights and dragons, it's their fantasy influenced by real history that they take from. And so I wouldn't be surprised if there are a lot of sort of narrative tropes that are similar between all those genres that are just sort of baked into how cultures tell stories. Vigilantism and chivalry and noble warriors. It's a common thread, so it's kind of interesting to pick up on some of those similarities that we can find.
Yeah. All right, should we get into our final thoughts?
Yeah, well, last detail I'm gonna throw out there. Name of the show, so many sequels. There is a geriatric sequel to this movie called Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Sword of Destiny, starring Donnie Yen. Very interesting. Did a little bit of research on it, not a lot. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon is based on a book series. So this was an adaptation of a different story in the book series. Anyway, it was fun to find that out. I always love when I find that a critically acclaimed movie that no one thinks has a sequel has a sequel. It's always fun.
Yeah, that's too bad. Sometimes you just gotta leave it alone, guys. Just leave it alone. All right, well, let me do my final review first, because it's gonna be the weakest of the three, I fear. But that's my fault. Like I said, I had some reservations going into it because I'm just not a fan of the martial arts fantasy genre. Ultimately, I found myself really liking the movie more as kind of a collection of moments than the cohesive story. I would kind of fall in and out of being engaged with it, but then it would suck me back in with some really cool stuff. And I appreciate those moments a lot. The performances were super strong. The setting, costumes, all that were beautifully made. And the fight choreography had some really high highs. But then, like I said, some of those parts of the wire work just kind of took me out again, and I thought they looked a little goofy. Send your complaints to me online. That's fine. I'm not going to fight over it. But, overall, I really appreciate the artistry. I just don't think it really clicked with me, so I'm going to give it 3 out of 5.
Yeah, I really think that for me, I was expecting a little bit more action, and then when I got more of a story, it kind of threw me. So it took me a second to readjust, and then when I'm able to kind of deconstruct it and look at it from a storytelling perspective and how they worked the fight and action into it, I come out with a different kind of appreciation. And it's actually a movie that I would like to revisit with a different kind of mindset and frame going into it. Having seen it, I think I will appreciate it a little bit more. So I'm going to go a little bit up. I'm going to throw a wrench in there because the artistry and the production value, I think, regard it higher than what our typical scale is. So I'm going to give this a 3.75.
Oh, throwing a wrench in there for sure.
Unconventional.
It's probably more complex than I can really give credit to or do credit to in my review. I'm sure there's elements that I've missed out on that people could tell me like, oh, well, you just don't know this or that. The sets and costumes, choreography are all amazing. The story was a bit of a struggle for me at times, but the performances felt very natural. I'm gonna go with a 4 out of 5, and I'm gonna guess that there's some cultural barriers that maybe are keeping it from being like a full 5 stars or anything like that. So interested to maybe read up more about the movie, see what other people have said over time, and maybe rewatch it at a future date. But I'll go with 4 out of 5 for now.
All right, that is a range from 3 to 4.5. So
No, 4.0.
4.0. Sorry. 4.0. So there you go. Now we will shift into our letterboxed game and take some guesses at what we think the community there has rated it. I'm going to read some of the most popular reviews. Not all of these are very funny because they're quite, these people are very excited about this movie. We'll start with this 4-star review. The data reports are in, sir, and this movie 100% slaps. 5 stars, honestly, one of the most visually and emotionally beautiful films I've ever seen. 3 stars, people in 19th century China could actually just fly.
Yeah.
5 stars, why aren't we all watching this every day of the week? And 4 stars, Michelle Yeoh could slice me in half and I'd say thank you. So, with those reviews in mind, am I still the starting lineup because I'm the loser?
You are. Dang. You are still in last, but it's a close race right now. The current score is Josh 10, Garrett 12, me 13.
Okay, great. Well, I'm gonna look. I feel pretty strongly that this movie is well loved, so I'm gonna take what I see as an easy out and pick 4.0.
Ooh, yeah, that's a good out.
That's a good guess.
Garrett?
I think that it will be well regarded. I think it will be kind of like us, where we kind of have a wide range, and so I'm gonna err on a side of 3.7. I'm gonna hit around where I was.
Ooh, okay. Interesting.
Okay.
Interesting. Okay. I'm gonna say that this is in the what some have referred to as the letterbox banger category. I'm gonna say it's a 4.2. Every movie that's a 4.2 on Letterboxd is an absolute banger.
Wow.
So I'm gonna say 4.2.
4.2, absolute banger. 3.7.
We can look up the
4.0.
sequel score for the tiebreaker.
Yeah, we'll have to look that up just for fun. Okay, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon has been logged 323,000 times, and we have a direct hit this week. And it was my easy out. I picked. It was the easiest way out. This movie is a perfect 4.0.
Sure.
So there you go. I'm starting to crawl back into life on this board.
You are. Josh is.
I think you're not in last anymore, there, friend.
2 Action August movies in a row.
It's about time I don't have to go first.
Well, actually, you and Garrett are directly tied. Direct hit brings you both to even 12.
Oh, we'll figure it out then. All right, yeah, 4.0 from the folks on Letterboxd. That's very good, very good.
That's the right. I think that's a right score.
Can't go wrong
Letterboxd.
with
Good
that.
job. No, I think it's good. I think it's
Interesting though. I think our Action August month is leaning a little fantasy.
It is.
I agree. We are.
I'm not saying there's not action, but it's heavy in the fantasy the last couple weeks.
It has
I
been.
agree, but see, that's the thing. Action can be a part of any kind of genre.
It can.
And so, but I was going to say, Josh, you are going to help us with that next week.
I
with
hope
your
so.
pick.
We're gonna go with what I recall being a balls to the wall action movie with Speed, starring Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock next week.
Yeah.
We really could have gone more hardcore with this if we wanted to be like traditional, like 80s action. If we wanted to do like Rambo, Terminator. What's another good
Variety
one?
is the
Who's it?
spice of life.
Jean-Claude
I
Van
like
Damme
the
movie.
variety. We get too many of that, then it just starts to feel muscly and sweaty in here, and I don't love
And
that.
you know, I hadn't seen
None
this
of
one
us are
before. I just
muscly or
assumed.
sweaty.
Part of me assumed this would be kind of like John Wick, where it'd just be fight after fight after fight,
Yeah.
in some ways, but they would all be like elegant and beautiful.
Yeah.
But yeah, it has. We've you know, there's not a fight in this movie until like 20 minutes in, so it takes its time.
It does. It
Yeah,
does.
what action movies do you think we should have picked? Let us know,
Yeah, please
and then
do.
we'll do it again.
Yeah.
You don't have to be mean about it. You can just offer us some suggestions that we can look into next year. Don't be dicks about it.
Exactly. There's never a need for that. There's never a need to be a dick about it. Just don't.
Hey, I like this action movie. You should watch this. Period. Okay. The end.
Yeah, we'll bring it back. Revengeary. We'll bring it back.
There's plenty of
And do
opportunities. There's
new-
Action April, Action August, Part 2.
yeah.
There's options.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well, like I said, we'll be back soon with Speed. But that's all for this episode of So Many Sequels. Subscribe to our YouTube channel or in your favorite podcast app to keep up with our new episodes and reviews. And then you can also follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Threads, and Facebook to stay in touch and let us know what you think of the show. Finally, head to SoManySequels.com for all those links and a catalog of all of our past episodes. We will see you all next time.